raise some
Cain. You gotta raise some Cain. In the heartland where the faith runs strong, we've seen the shadows growing long. Watch those around us be deceived. Yeah, the fight is at our doors, no matter who we believe. Corruption, lawless day and night, we'll speak the truth into the light. We'll bring the battle, heed the call, watch the whole thing fall. We gotta raise some Cain, show the lies, break some chains and make things right. Feel the power, be the change, time is now. We gotta raise some Cain.
Welcome, Patriots, to another edition of the Raising Cain Show. Tonight, we had a show, kind of planned for tonight, but of course, with all the things that are happening geopolitically, we have kind of mixed it up a little bit, and I've got a very great guest on tonight that's going to help me break down what has been happening around the world geopolitically and how it ties in specifically with various things happening around the world, along with the corruption that's being exposed and all of that. It's going to be a great show tonight. So, folks, make sure to like and subscribe, and more than anything, make sure and share the link to this show, because I think we're going to talk about things and reveal some things and connect the dots on some things that probably a lot of people are not talking about. Tonight, our guest is Tyler Nixon, constitutional attorney and legal strategist. He's known for his defense of civil liberties and his sharp analysis of government overreach, corruption, and foreign policy consequences. So we're going to get into a lot of these topics tonight. But as you know, I like to get the commercials over with. That way we can have an uninterrupted discussion about these critical issues that are happening right now. So with no further ado, I'm going to run those, and then we'll be right back with Tyler Nixon.
Heard of Q broadcast? It's taking the world by storm. People are cutting the cord to their high cable bills and moving away from streaming services like Netflix, Hulu, and others for something better. Q broadcast. For just $60 a month, you'll get access to every channel you could ever want, including HBO, Cinemax, and Stars. And the best part? There are no contracts, no hidden fees, and you're free to cancel anytime. With Q Broadcast, you can enjoy streaming live TV, movies, and top series on up to 5 devices at once. Whether you're at home or on the go, Q Broadcast makes sure your entertainment is always at your fingertips. Imagine being able to watch all your favorite channels from anywhere, anytime, without any restrictions. We're talking about thousands of movies, hundreds of TV series, and a huge library of live channels, all in one place. And don't forget video on demand and pay-per-view events. Those are included at no extra cost, so you'll never miss a big event again. Now, take a second and think about your current cable bill. You're probably paying anywhere between $100 and $300 every month, locked into long-term contracts and hit with surprise rate increases. With Q Broadcast, that's a thing of the past. It's just $60 a month. No contracts, no extra fees, no hidden costs, and no price hikes. Why juggle multiple subscriptions like Netflix, Hulu, and cable when Q Broadcast gives you everything you need in one convenient package? People everywhere are switching to Q Broadcast, saving money and getting more content than ever before. So, what are you waiting for? Click the link in the description and sign up for Q Broadcast today. Just $60 a month, no contracts, no hidden fees. It's time to take control of your entertainment and start streaming smarter.
Since 2017, 150,000 farms have shut down. Working farmland has been reduced by 21 million acres. The system has been crippling the remaining farmers, forcing some to adopt nefarious farming techniques, by pumping hormones and other performance-enhancing drugs into their cows so they can survive in crammed feedlots. Or the farmers are forced to jump ship and sell to land-hoarding, profit-chasing agricultural oligarchies, who use their billions of dollars to crush the competition and increase your family's dependence on their manufactured food. What could possibly go wrong? The family farm will soon be a thing of the past, unless you do something. You can. That's why there's From the Farm, an industry-disrupting platform that connects consumers directly with local farmers, which means you can buy fresh, non-factory farm food, and you'll know exactly where your food came from and how it was raised. For the first time in nearly 100 years, independent farms will have a way to not only survive, but thrive. From the Farm was founded by A.J. Richards, an active homesteader, and Brooke Entz, a CrossFit Games athlete and an Amazonian warrior in the movies Wonder Woman and Justice League. She clearly has a passion for healthy food and a healthy lifestyle. And since both AJ and Brooke come from generations of ranchers and farmers, they know what they're talking about. We can't do this alone. We need the strength of the American people behind us. Help us build a new food system that combines the wisdom of the past with the technology of the future. Investing in From the Farm isn't just a financial decision. It's an investment into our future, our small family farms, and our food sovereignty. Invest today.
Welcome back, folks. And tonight we've got a great show ahead of us. Our guest tonight is Tyler Nixon, constitutional attorney and legal strategist known for his defense of civil liberties and his sharp analysis of government overreach, corruption, and foreign policy consequences. Tyler has been on the front lines of major legal and political battles, and tonight he joins us to connect the dots between law, power, and global accountability. Wow. Tyler, thank you so much for joining us, man. We got a lot to talk about tonight.
It's an honor to be with you tonight, Nate. Raising Cain, because it needs to be raised.
It is certainly being raised around the world right now, and of course, it was Joint Chiefs of Staff General Raising Cain who led this battle, in Venezuela, and a battle, I should say. Really, it was a 1 hour, pretty much a 1 hour operation. Of course, I think this was months in the making, if not years in the making, but pretty amazing tactics that were used, and the ability for them to get in and get out and capture, really a narco terrorist who has been running that country illegally. So pretty awesome night. And one of the things that I want to get into is talking about, there's all this talk going on right now about whether or not this was legal, whether or not that, this was a violation of international orders, or whether this was a violation of the Constitution. Who better to ask than a constitutional attorney? So let's get right into it. And I think, to kind of set us off on the right foot, I've got a little video that I want to play here, because if there's anything, that saying pride comes before the fall, I thought this was such a great example of that. So I'm going to play this real quick.
Venga por mí. Aquí lo espero en Miraflores. No hace tarde en llegar, cobarde.
And now,
Sicker than your average. Papa twist cabbage on instinct. Niggas don't think shit stink. Pink gators. My Detroit players.
I love it.
Yeah.
It doesn't get much better than that. You got this guy calling for, basically calling for, Trump, come and get me. Basically, saying he's not afraid of him, saying that, calling Trump a coward, and, famous last words.
Yeah, for sure. Listen, I think I probably am like you, and that I'm Ron Paul guy. I believe we should be limited on our interventions. But if we're going to do interventions, if we're going to have a massive military, I think it's absolutely critical that it's used as this was used. First of all, in our own hemisphere. Secondly, going after an outright criminal regime that has been. I mean, Chavez was bad enough, but I mean, Maduro is awful. I mean, you see. It's so funny, all the the people trying to poo-poo the whole thing. This is if this is the way we do projections of power, military power or otherwise, then this is something that I think most people can live with, even those who oppose war, because it's surgical, it was well planned, it was almost bloodless at this point. It accomplished the objective, and it clearly did a good thing, because I mean, the people, and just look at the people of Venezuela celebrating all over the ones who've been driven out around the globe. And I don't know, what the situation is on the ground there. And I guess obviously it's always the uh, post deposition, I guess you could say, of a dictator or a dictatorial regime that always becomes the problem, the thorny, the sticky wicket, I guess you could call it. And so we'll see what happens. But I know that deposing and bringing that criminal to justice is a good thing. And as someone who doesn't want to see American treasure and blood spilled anywhere around the world for hopeless or needless or um, uh, dubious causes, I think this was a good one.
Yeah. And I want to hit on that because to me, this is really what it's all about, right? America first. I think there's an interesting shift that has been happening within the MAGA movement, right? Those people who feel that Trump has completely abandoned America first. And really, these are people who are very much isolationists. And, they want America only. And I don't think that is a reality that we can live in, if we're being honest. I don't think that we live in a world where we have, these people who are bringing in drugs, who are bringing in massive amounts of human trafficking across our border. And by the way, there are things that there's things that I know. And then there's things that I know that I can talk about and things that I know that I can't talk about. Up until December of last year, I held a top secret clearance. I worked at the DEA, who was very much, I guarantee you, involved in this operation. There was a lot of stuff that I was privy to that Venezuela was directly involved with that I hope will come out, because there is way more going on that Venezuela has been directly involved with. In fact, I would say Venezuela in many ways has been probably our chief enemy, really, in the last probably 5 years. I mean, China, of course, has been a big adversary when it comes to, cyber warfare. Iran, of course, has all. Sorry about that. I lost my connection there for a short bit.
No worries.
Here's the thing. There's been a lot that's been going on in terms of economic warfare, in terms of cyber warfare that has been happening from places like China, Iran, Syria, North Korea, Russia. But what has been happening directly tied to Venezuela and directly tied to Maduro's regime in terms of the massive amounts of fentanyl coming into our country, the massive amounts of human trafficking that has come into this country, and gang members and things like that have come here with the intent to harm U.S. citizens. This was a direct national security threat that had to be dealt with. And yeah. I'm of the opinion, like you are, that look, if we're going to be involved in anything, shouldn't it be in our own backyard? Shouldn't it be, defending our borders, defending our nation from direct threats to us? It makes sense.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And let's face it, Venezuela was like an Axis proxy right in our own backyard, essentially, or a hemispheric backyard. And the mischief that they got away with and being in such close proximity. I mean, don't tell me they weren't in communications with China and with any of the villains or the villainous regimes out there that have ill designs for us, or would wish us or do us ill. And I think they've eclipsed Cuba. Cuba was sort of the Soviet client state right in our in our backyard. I think Venezuela is a little further, but Cuba sort of just fell into disrepair. It's kind of like, it's really sad that we, I think, invaded, Afghanistan, invaded Iraq, while Cuba remains in the hands of an oppressive communist regime from the Castro brothers, going back almost 60, 70 years. And, it seems to me like why wouldn't we have gone in there first, But I think, unfortunately, what you have is, you look at those who would defend Maduro and defend Chavez, and would, and from, let's face it, the American left, and I'm sure the new mayor of New York is probably all about that regime. But that regime
Right,
reflects
right.
exactly what socialism, collectivism, what it really is, which is just, and we see it in the Democrat left in this country, which is just a corruption machine. Whereby the people at the top essentially bleed the country out, become ultra rich, and just pass it on to the next member of the regime or of the elites. It's just a more focused version of it, with more authoritarian and totalitarian, overt totalitarian action than we see in this country. Although the Democrat left in this country, I think, would go that far if they could, and certainly have.
Yeah.
If you look at the importation of the election fraud infrastructure, mechanisms, technology, whatever have you, right out of Venezuela. I mean, this is where it originated. I was watching videos.
Smartmatic.
Yeah, Smartmatic, exactly, to secure Chavez's fraudulent elections for himself.
And I guarantee you,
and
when you look at what has happened in Brazil, when you look at what has happened in Colombia and several other surrounding countries, I guarantee you Chavez has been involved in it.
Yeah. I mean, he makes Castro look light-handed, or sort of light touch in terms of his what he did in Nicaragua, in El Salvador, and all the stuff that went on in the 80s, 90s. Trying to insinuate, while the Soviet Empire was still there to prop them up, as it was propping itself up. And no, Venezuela has been particularly pernicious. I mean, and I have to say, look, the fentanyl, the drugs, obviously that's a clear and present danger to our civilization, our culture, to people, millions of Americans. But I think that the most, if you want to talk about the most absolutely fundamental, essential threat, and the worst evil that they've done, is this, frankly, this election fraud machinery that has been imported
Absolutely.
and, frankly, proliferated throughout the United States through these evil corporations, or these companies that, with names like Smartmatic and Dominion, who have essentially set up the end of democracy. And we're not a democracy, we're a republic, but we have popular consensual self-governance. And they have, I mean, as I wrote recently in a comment, they have made it so they can just essentially delete the franchise of the American people with a few sinister keystrokes. And this has got to change. And I'm hoping this is sort of building to that crescendo, because I don't think we've had an honest election in many parts of this country, if not nationally, for probably 10 years minimum. And in places like California, I would say more like 20 years.
Look, in all of the analysis that I've done, and I've done quite a bit, I've worked on election integrity. I've done it both voluntarily and for pay. I mean, this is like what I do, cybersecurity, and I've looked at a lot of the actual evidence, and overwhelmingly, the way that elections were stolen in the past was always done through ballot stuffing. That was primarily how it was done. And it was only in certain districts where that were heavily Democrat controlled. And that's how they kept power, in a lot of these cities. And they were, big enough, and the populations were large enough that they could basically get away with it. They were dense enough, they could get away with it.
And plus, once they get the levers of power through these fraudulent elections, who's left? I mean, who can do anything about it?
Prior to the advent of electronic voting, there was no way for them to do that on a national level. They really couldn't. That has all changed with the mail-in ballots, with electronic voting, with the fact that in every blue state, illegal aliens are allowed to get driver's licenses, and believe me, there's a reason for that. The fact that they allow these third-party organizations like Rock the Vote to gain access to the voter registration files. I mean, it is crazy what is going on. It is such a recipe for fraud that you would have to be either a liar or an idiot to not realize what is going on right in front of our faces. I mean,
Yeah.
they literally are gaslighting
You
the
just took
American
the words
people.
out of my mouth. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly what happened in 2020. And, the fact that, I mean, for those of us who knew the deal and could see with our own eyes that that was a completely fraudulent, stolen, and people say stolen election. They didn't steal the election. They stole our government. They
Yep.
stole our voice.
And by the way, what we're talking about right now, forever, you had the media, the mainstream media, and the Democrats, and even some Republicans saying that, oh, that was all a hoax, that it wasn't stolen.
Oh, worse than that. You were villainized.
It's come out in court now. It has come out multiple states where they had more people who voted than were even registered to vote.
Yeah.
Georgia
Absolutely.
just had that big, 300,000 illegal votes. Pennsylvania had illegal votes, but they had to rule after the case, but then they didn't go back and change anything. The bottom line is just those two, either one of those states would have gone for Trump, which both of them actually went for Trump. But if either one of them had been changed, it would have totally changed the outcome of the election. So regardless of anything else, those are two cases that have already gone through and been adjudicated in court. There's absolutely no way that the previous administration was legitimate. And that includes, to a certain degree, even those in Congress, who
Ossoff and the two senators from Georgia, they were swept in on the same fraud. I mean, it was just essentially literally not weeks later. So which flipped the Senate. So I mean, we're talking about epic level changes and consequences for the American people. Plus, and the thing is, let's face it, Nate. I mean, where's the evidence? Well, I mean, first of all, it was in plain sight. They just didn't want to see it, and even if you served it up, I mean, we were expecting signed confessions as evidence,
Right.
And the thing about it is, this was systematic in so many ways, and it was ubiquitous on so many levels and in so many different venues that it was just, I mean, it's astonishing to me, like the juggernaut that was behind this. It is scary. And the media, of course, being, I mean, in my view, either accessories after the fact or complicit in a treasonous conspiracy in this country, a seditious conspiracy, I guess would be more accurate, but treasonous when you consider the the foreign actors involved. And yet we still have not seen justice. We still have not seen adequate changes. So people got to really get riled up about this and get cracking and get active and get engaged, because otherwise we're going to lose it. These upcoming elections, they'll just keep repeating this. I mean, I live in Colorado.
I think it's interesting. So you've got massive, deportation effort that is going on right now in the country. Trump is removing a lot of these people. I know that there are massive efforts in many states, although in blue states it's very difficult to do it. But there are massive efforts to get the voter rolls cleaned up. I know that there was a case that was brought previously during the 2024 election, and I think it was it was either that or it might have been the 2022. I can't remember, but there was a case that was brought. And the Supreme Court basically said, no, we're going to wait on this until we see the results of the election, and then we'll decide whether we decide to take that case. But it had to do with the fact that the Trump administration had brought a case to the Supreme Court over the issue of counting illegal aliens in our census, because that it basically, if you did the math, and I did the math on this, based on numbers that were agreed upon on both sides, is probably much more. But California would lose 7 seats if they didn't count illegal aliens at the most conservative level. My state of West Virginia would gain a seat, and so would several other smaller population states. So in other words, myself and every other West Virginian is being disenfranchised from an electoral vote because of what's going on with the way that they're counting illegals in states like California, New York, and quite honestly, even, Texas and some of these larger states. So this is a big problem. And you're right. the elections are everything, because if we can't trust our elections, if we can't trust that the people we are voting for are actually getting in there, it ultimately will lead to civil unrest and and a complete breakdown of civil society. And and I've already I was saying this back before Trump won, and I believe the way he was able to pull it off was, number one, we didn't have COVID, so it became very difficult for states to justify the mass mail-in ballots that they had done. They had already kind of blew their they showed their cards, and they couldn't do it again, not to the same degree.
And let me just interject here. The fact that COVID, which was a phony, a scamdemic. I mean, it was from the beginning. I said this doesn't meet the definition of a pandemic, but under by any measure, the fact that they would literally shut down America, lock people down, kill people, with Fauci on the loose, in order to. And I honestly believe that, in addition to serving certain pharmaceutical interests and corporate interests and authoritarian interests, the fact that it was used to set up the very conditions that gave us the 2020 election fraud,
Listen,
the mail-in ballots especially.
I don't think it's
like
a far stretch.
Stunning.
Yeah, I don't think it's a far stretch with everything that has come out, with the evidence that not only was this virus created in a lab in Wuhan, China, not only was it released into the public, interestingly, at a time where, I think China basically sent planes everywhere, and a lot of them to the U.S., but they didn't allow any planes coming to them.
Yeah.
You also had this exercise.
And isolated Wuhan itself.
Right. You also had that exercise that was ran, that was done by the
Bill Gates,
World Health Organization, and Bill Gates and his organization, basically funding the event that basically laid out the plans for everything, including all of the lockdowns and everything else that that was put in place. You can't tell me that there wasn't a very high likelihood that it was planned for multiple things. Number one, to make money, and Bill Gates, by the way, starting his joint venture with George Soros to buy they bought, not only did he have investment in Moderna, but he and George Soros did a joint venture to buy the test, what is
PCR
it?
test, which was totally abused.
They bought that test. And when I looked at the money that was spent by the U.S. government, we spent more money on the testing than we did actually on the creation of vaccines. I mean, you can't tell me
the PP, what do they call it? Personal protective. What's the acronym?
Yeah. All that came from China, and you had the governor of California basically making deals with China to send all of the personal protective gear and all that to come to California. It's absolutely crazy.
Masks. I mean, you think about it's the corruption is so extreme and so my God, it's just it's mind-boggling, actually, because when you think of the scope and scale and the plans that these people hatched, and the fact that it was so well coordinated with these state governments, even local governments, media. I mean, it's like, what the hell? It exposed what we're really up against and what we really have to take on.
And to your point, when we look at the corruption that existed in Venezuela, which was massive, it was, look at what we're uncovering today in Minnesota.
Oh yeah.
And in Michigan and Washington, in multiple states. They're saying that California, they think, is going to be, far worse than what we're seeing even in Minnesota. The amount of fraud and money laundering, that has gone on
Now, this is on top of the USAID scam. All these NGOs, which were just kickback operations for Democrat political interests. I mean, it's just stunning. And not to mention Ukraine as well. I'm sure there's plenty of money flow back there. I mean, we have been getting ripped off and screwed in every which way but loose in this country for decades now. And it's still not enough for these people. And they still have to continue to grasp and grope for more power and more control. And, I mean, They have to be stopped. As I said before, with
The
Democrats
only
are not a
way,
party.
yeah, the only way that I see it ever stopping, or at least having a damper put on it, is people got to go to prison. There has to be consequences.
Yeah, no question. They have to go to prison if for justice. I mean, much less the
right.
fact of the prophylactic or deterrent aspect of it. I mean, this is just. I mean, the fact that it's gone this far. And here's the thing: President Trump ran for 4 years on the 2020 election being stolen and a fraud, and he beat back their attempts to shoehorn Biden or whatever, Kamala Harris. The whole. I think the Democrats realized they expended a lot of their ammunition. They couldn't get away with it again. But nevertheless, it was still a resounding victory considering what he was up against, what they tried to do to him. And so where's the action is my question. Like maybe there's something going on. I mean, this could be a great opening salvo at the beginning of this year. They've got everything in place that taking down that regime, which has been the source of so much mischief, particularly the election stuff. But
so let me ask you on this, because I've been thinking about this for a while. Why, with all that's going on, why was Venezuela such an important target? I do think that there's much more to the story than just drugs, than just even, the illegal immigration stuff. I think I know there's way more. There's way more that I think could get revealed here, and I suspect.
Well,
there's things that I know.
Trump was open about it.
Well, I suspect there are people within our government, people within the Democrat Party, who have been in league with Maduro. Do you remember
Absolutely.
There was a bunch of Democrats that went down there to go meet with Maduro? I'm trying to remember when that was, but I think Nancy Pelosi might have been one of them. But there was a bunch of them that went down there.
Yeah. Probably
And
John Kerry involved somehow. That whole,
probably.
I mean, yeah, no, there's no question about it. I mean, Maduro was just a polished up. I mean, Chavez was kind of a brute, and Maduro was, he was a left-wing dictator that they loved, and he served their interests. And let's face it, their agenda here domestically has been exactly what Maduro's Venezuela has been trying to export here: drugs, lawlessness, corruption, and just the sort of a cross-border flow. I mean, how many Venezuelans have we had to take in this country? How many flowed across our borders? And God bless them, they actually were probably the only legitimate refugees you could talk about, because that was such a corrupt regime. But no, absolutely, the Democrats are in bed with all of it. I'm sure they're. I mean, as I've said before, the Democrats are not a political party; they're a crime syndicate. There's no. It's beyond question at this point.
Yeah, I'm trying to look this up here because I remember there was a number of them that went down there. This was a few years ago, but it was very suspect.
I feel like it was under Obama, but I mean that would have been back. That would have gone back to Chavez, though.
No, yeah, and I think it was under the Biden administration.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, so there's a lot more I think that's going to come out of this. I think so here's my thinking is that, look, what a brilliant idea. Let's talk about this for a minute. When they said that they had captured, I remember I got woken up at 6:30 this morning by my brother-in-law who called me, woke me out of bed. And he's like, "Hey," he said, "Did you hear that they caught Maduro and his wife? And they're putting them on a ship back to the U.S." And I'm like, "What?" I didn't believe it at first. I was like, "Are you kidding me?" And I thought maybe he was reading some fake news or something. But then I got online and was looking it up, and sure enough, because at first when I got on to I wanted to go check all the mainstream media and see what they're saying, and none of them, like, they were talking about there was some operation, there was some bombing, there were helicopters. They were like, but we don't really know what's happened.
Yeah.
There were conservative news outlets that were already talking about it online. If you went online, you could see people talking about it, but none of the mainstream media, not even Fox, would talk about the fact that Maduro had actually been captured.
Yeah.
And,
because ultimately they have this genetic inability to give Trump credit for anything, no matter how good it goes.
So think about this, right? If Trump had killed him, okay, which I think he would have been well within his rights to do.
Oh, no
If
question.
he had killed him, then it would have just opened up the door for the Democrats to, to try to bring impeachment charges, try to say this was an act of war, blah, blah, blah. But the fact that he captured him and he's bringing him back, it's not even a military,
No, it's a grab.
law enforcement operation.
It's like serving in war internationally, like a letter of marque.
I mean,
you're right. It really, it had military. Obviously, it was a law enforcement operation essentially, but obviously, removing him has serious geopolitical or regional, certainly, implications, and for that country, it
certainly impacts China. So China was there.
The Silk Road is going to be coming to
the day that this, you have to believe that this was part of the plan. The day that we go in and capture Maduro is the same day. Earlier that day, a Chinese delegation was meeting with Maduro. I've watched the video of it. They were meeting with Maduro in the capital at his home. And, he's all talking about, this and that, and about how they're going to make deals, and, and they're going to, he's going to basically, he was going to allow them to basically run their oil, start working to develop their oil assets and all this stuff. And by the way, Russia was supplying military weapons to Venezuela. China was the primary, they are the number one buyer, or I should say the number one trade partner with Venezuela. Iran has been.
Where do you think all the fentanyl's coming from, right?
Exactly. So all of this, it's all tied together.
Yeah.
It is all tied together. Venezuela was literally their launch point, into the US. And by the way, Colombia, Cuba, and I would have to say also too, I think Brazil's got to watch their back too. All these other countries that are down there that are toying with that are even thinking of the idea of doing business with our enemies. I guarantee you now they're having second thoughts.
Yeah, not to mention the just complete repression, which I think would have been done in this country, like Bolsonaro. They've got him essentially looking at life imprisonment, and that's awful. But you look at the miracle of El Salvador, though. That is
beautiful.
That shows you what we can accomplish if we get pro rule of law, pro constitutional oriented, rights oriented. And not standing for the corruption. Any regime like that is having massive success, and the people are behind it. Let's face it, we're up against criminal elites who use, low. It's like the cartels. They have just low-level thuggish armies, but it doesn't represent. The popular will, I think, throughout this hemisphere certainly. I don't know about China and that, but I know that in this on this side of the world, people want to be free. And I'd say the people of South Latin America, South and Central America have been totally beleaguered by these tin pot dictators, in some cases set up by, ostensibly or purportedly right wingers, like in Chile, whatever, back in maybe in the 70s. But for the most part, though, either way, it's fallen. Cuba did a lot of damage in terms of setting up these dictatorships, and it gave the toehold to first what was the Soviets, then Russia, and mainly China. And I think it's great. It would be great for us to reassert ourselves and forget the Middle East. Forget these projecting force all the way in, becoming hated by an entire region on the other side of the world, and then having to take these people in, refugees, whatever, supposedly. When we can just clean up our own, have frankly what I think was envisioned by good people as far as being, the good neighbor policy we had, and not having something like the what was it called, the School of the Americas be some CIA training ground, but instead actually, bringing people into the American constitutional way, and bringing our own country back to it too, by the way, while we're at it.
Well, I think we are entering a new era and of American foreign policy. And I think what is going to likely happen out of this is I think that the charges that they are going to bring against Maduro are going to be charges that could bring the death penalty. And in order to keep him, in order to keep the death penalty off the table, I think he's going to have to cooperate, start naming names, start telling who his co-conspirators were, start letting us know who it was in the United States government that was cooperating with him and working with him to undermine, our country and our elections. I think that he's going to reveal the names of, the other countries that have been, providing, resources to, try to undermine us through his country. I really suspect, because unlike, in the United States, it's possible to keep the president completely unaware of what's going on because of the way that our government is set up, right? But in a dictatorship, that's pretty dang hard to do.
Everything ran through Maduro.
Everything.
He has all. I mean, there are people quaking right now, I'm sure, at the thought of what he could. And the thing is, he's not an ideologue. He's not a militant sort of fundamentalist, in terms of his politics or his philosophy. He's just a crook. He's just a criminal. So I have no doubt that he'll sell out whoever and reveal whatever he has to reveal to save his own skin, because he's not going to go down fight, for some, viva la revolucion. Excuse me.
He doesn't believe in communism anymore than the next 10 dictator does. Yeah, I mean that's the whole joke about socialism. I mean, you think about Mondami, right? I mean, this guy, his wife's wearing these like with $600 boots or something like that.
Yeah, no,
it's like he's not going to give up all the money that came from his family. It's like if he really truly believed in what he's trying to sell, it's a bunch of horse shit, and everybody knows it.
It always has been. Yeah. I mean, Karl Marx lived off of Engels' family. Was total bum and a reprobate. And, let's face it, all these leftists, I mean, look at Bernie Sanders. He's a millionaire. He's never worked an honest day in his life. These people, they go straight into the public, become immediate polemicists and sort of carnival barker level, political, sort of philosophy, whatever we call it, an alien system, pushing against the system. And the communist infiltration has been real in this country for a century. Joe McCarthy was right. I mean, he just, they vilified him, but there still is, I mean, the communist infiltration, and it marches forward, and it's become extreme.
So I don't trust, socialism is one of those, it's one of those ideas, right, that sounds great, for fairness and all of that if you're not educated. But in the end, I don't trust any human being with that kind of power. It just it leads to corruption. It's like that saying that
Lord Acton.
What's that?
Lord Acton.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. That really is at the heart of it, right? And I look at, like, when you study countries that move in the direction of communism or socialism, it's always because the people are suffering. They're dealing with, you've got massive.
It's exploitative at its heart.
And so you see, oftentimes it's monopolies and there's corruption going on and things like that. It's not true capitalism. It's cronyism that's happening. And so the people, it's a reaction to it.
It's not free market economics for sure.
No, not. And so what ends up happening is, so people end up basically reacting to those who see an opportunity to use and abuse those people, to make them their useful idiots, to upset the those that are in power, right?
Yep.
And at the same time, the people can only tolerate that kind of crap for so long. But the problem is that when you have monopolies and you have people that are basically doing harm to their fellow countrymen through those types of practices, it doesn't take the form. Well, maybe it does. I would say it doesn't take the form of authoritarianism, unless you have certain circumstances of where it comes into total, monopoly, right? An example of that, and I was just reading about this because I live in West Virginia, and I don't remember how I came across this, but somebody was telling me about the Battle of Mount Blair. And it was this period of time in West Virginia where you had coal mine operations, where basically the coal mine, owners, they owned everything. They owned the houses that the people lived in. They owned the grocery store that they went to. They paid them in script so that they could only buy from their stores.
Yeah. It was essentially slavery.
It was like a mini dictatorship, and then if anybody tried to unionize, they would kick you out of your house along with your wife and your kids and all of that. And so, I've often wondered, how in the heck did this state ever become, why was it so Democrat for so long? That's why, because they was big union state because of the abuses that happened from, these very powerful, money barons, basically, that were essentially running their own little dictatorships here in the state. And so
yet they elect a Rockefeller. I mean, it's a joke. It's like, the Democratic Party produced like such a perversion and inversion of what the people of West Virginia, having gone through that rough, again, being exploited. I mean, the Democrats were just the next plantation owners after the, and organized labor was just the sort of the version of like the Pinkertons for the Democrats.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, really, that is what it is. And so the only way that we, there's a natural inclination, right, for people to want to be free. I think that it's in every human being's heart. That's why we're seeing what we're seeing right now in Iran. Interestingly enough, I was trying to understand what was leading, what led to this major uprising in Iran that's happening right now. I think they said that the price of food has gone up by like 125%. Inflation, and so people are starving, and they're not having it anymore.
And I think they realize also, like, they're living under the boot, or the boot is on their neck, and they're thinking, well, we're going to get invaded, and our country's going to be destroyed to prop up this fundamentalist, Islamic regime. I mean, I think they've had enough. I'm just surprised they haven't had an internal revolution yet. I mean, I think unfortunately we've unwittingly contributed to their cohesion by Israel and being, so like, in other words, becoming the great Satan, which is an organizing force for them. If we'd probably just left well enough alone and just quietly supported freedom movements and resisted it peacefully.
We've had the opportunity a few times, and under Obama administration, they basically bailed on the people who
totally
were trying
to left those people twisting in the wind. And the thing is, it comes down to, if we really want to see Iran become a free country again, or at least something close to it, or certainly not under Islamic fundamentalist totalitarianism, it's not gonna come through Israel and through Zionist.
Well, I don't know if you saw. It's interesting. That Netanyahu made a comment a couple of days ago in regards to, he was being asked about what was going on in Iran, and he flat out said, "Look, Israel needs to stay out of this. We don't want to." We don't want this to have the taint of Israel on it. If the people can overthrow that, they're dictators, that would be great. But really,
that'd be the smartest thing he said in a long time.
Right. So and I mean, I think honestly, it was the best move they could make. It is interesting, Trump. The one thing that Trump does that a lot of people, even on our side of things, don't like, is that he runs his mouth. And things, that's the problem. So you got to understand Trump. Trump doesn't always do what he says, but he always says whatever he feels like saying, and he has a purpose in why he says what he says. He has created this image of himself around the world as an unpredictable, thug, and don't cross him or he will take you out. F around and find out. I think if you heard the speech that was given today, I think those were the exact words that were used by our Secretary of War. He effed around and found out, and I was laughing because that is, I think, ultimately, what this is all about. It's a projection of power, And I think this is a very clear statement to the cartels in Mexico and to the president of Mexico. You better cooperate with us, and you better not be working with the cartels, because we will take you out, especially if you're right on our border. I think this is a message to, Cuba. I think it's a message to, to Colombia. And quite frankly, I would not be surprised if we suddenly found a peace deal happening between the Ukraine and Russia.
Yeah.
So,
well, listen, I also think it reflects what, let's face it, the sort of deterrent, or rightfully so, to our insinuating ourselves militarily, at least, into any foreign country has been the expenditure, as I've mentioned at the beginning, of blood, treasure, and boots on the ground, and becoming entangled. And then, let's face it, everything that came out of 9/11, with the prolonged, 20 plus year war there, and then the ignominious withdrawal, where Trump is sort of sending this message like, yeah, he may talk a big game, may talk a lot of shit, but when he does it, when he pulls the trigger, it's precision, it's targeted, it's minimalist in terms of losses or even potential losses, and it accomplishes the mission, and it goes right to the heart of the thing. And we didn't have to go invade the whole country to take down Maduro like they did with Saddam Hussein.
Yeah.
And it's brilliant, because I think it should give a lot of the sort of elite, the evil elite, so to speak, pause, because hey, we could take you. You don't need, we don't need to expend billions of dollars or have send down armies. We will just take you out like surgical style. And yeah, I think that goes a long way to shoring up his, for all that he talks, he's backed it up.
Oh yeah, and I'll tell you the other thing too that I find interesting is when you look at the way that they executed this, where there was no loss of U.S. lives, no, we didn't
even equipment or anything. I mean, even not even that I know of, anyway.
No, I think one helicopter got shot, but it made it back, and they'll patch it up. When you think about that, I mean, like, look,
it's unprecedented.
I think our military is the best in the world, and especially our special forces units. As much as I think Trump is the greatest president that we've ever had in my lifetime, and possibly, in the last 100 years, as much as those things are true, I have to believe when you see something go this smoothly, happen this precise and this perfectly, God's hand was in this. There's no doubt.
Absolutely. No, yeah. And I think because they went in for the right reasons. There weren't ulterior motives. I mean, this was an evil regime. I think that's let's face it, that's always been our undoing, is when we've had ulterior motives that are, the greed of oil men.
Well,
example,
or you mentioned that because a lot of people are there. You hear a lot of the left, going to say, "Oh, Trump just wants the oil. He just wants the oil." Trump's very precise on what he says. In that he said, "Look,
well,
he was going to go in there.
Yeah, we want the oil, but we're not going to steal it."
Right? He said, "We're going to rebuild. We're going to run their oil operations." He says, and everybody's going to do well because of it. And this is what the interesting thing he said. He said that there are companies who are going to come down there and they're going to invest their money into it. And he said, and because of that, this is not going to be paid for out of the taxpayers' dollars. So he's very aware.
The people of Venezuela are going to benefit from it rather than a kleptocratic dictatorship, as has been the case. So anything would be better than what Maduro was doing to the people of Venezuela. So I mean, it's just a slam dunk. I mean, you could argue, for example, with Hussein, for example. Look, that was a close call, because I mean, he kept a lid on things in terms of the more radical forces there, and essentially ran a Western style, dictatorship. I mean, Western style in terms of like it wasn't repressive of the people, at least it was like on a religious or fundamentalist level, as similar to Gaddafi. Now, they were thugs, they were murderous, but for the large part, those countries ran pretty well under those, but in the case of Maduro, I mean, and Chavez, I mean, my God, what they've done to what
Right.
what they've done to the Venezuelan people. They are the beneficiaries of this, and that's why ultimately, again, you're right. God's hand is in it, because I think He is, without having to spill the blood of so and blow up the infrastructure and destroy the country. He's been able to liberate these people through
Yeah.
the surgical action.
Absolutely. I have a friend whose wife is Venezuelan, and so of course I reached out, this morning. I was like, "Hey, what's going on?" Because she still has family down there, and she, responded back and said that there apparently no civilians were targeted. It was military, basically only military targets were targeted with the bombing that occurred. There was a report this morning, and also, and the concern that people had was that there's a lot of people within the a lot of the military generals that have been a part of the torture machine, and so the concern is will there be justice on those folks? And I think there has to be. There's going to have to be a judicial process to bring these people to justice that have committed these crimes against humanity, not just Maduro, but others, right? And so if those guys aren't already fleeing the country, they're going to have to be rounded up and tried, and they'll have to have some sort of like Nuremberg, style, trials. But to the point that I heard somebody making, because they were talking about that and saying about how that needed to happen. But yeah, that's not Trump's job, though. Trump went after the person who has caused harm to America. The people of Venezuela are going to need to bring their own people to justice who have done crimes against them. And I think that's something that has to happen in their courts, but we may have to help set up because I'm sure they've got a lot of corrupt judges and a lot of corrupt officials that are going to have to be removed so that justice can happen.
Yeah, we're not. This is not the Bushian democratic messianism where we're going to export democracy to the world. This is giving these people an opportunity, taking out an impediment, a criminal regime that had been blocking them. Where it goes from here is their decision. I don't think anybody's looking to impose a regime. There is not other than the people who were maybe legitimately elected and the election was stolen from them by Maduro, there's no sort of, I don't believe there's a at least that I would detect sort of a retinue of like spooks ready to move in and exploit that. I think he's gotten rid of he's done them a favor, but and again, I think who else would they want to export to oil wise, or what, the oil that's going to benefit not only Venezuela, the Venezuelan people, but it's going to benefit this entire hemisphere, the entire region, the entire continent, really.
And who is it? When you think about it, right? Who does it hurt?
It's to China.
It's going to impact China. It's also going to impact Russia, because if we can get oil flowing, right?
Put a lot of eggs in that basket. Oil. In fact, looking at a comment,
it's ultimately going to lower the price of oil, right? As we flood the market with oil, and what that does is that takes away the Russian war machine.
Yeah, and squeezes the Chinese, who were looking, as one commenter, astute commenter, notes that they had just met with the Maduro regime to lock up silver and gold exports from there. This is the Chinese had designs on just, very much in a more sort of slick way than, for example, the way Eastern Europe was essentially raped by the Soviet Union. They were going to extract as much as they could from right from our backyard. And I love it. This was it's amazing how much rode on that regime staying in power, and how much will change because of its, I would hope, because of its, being taken down and brought to justice again, on not just, going in and slaughtering the guy, but actually bringing him in and being able to lay out what his crimes are and why this was done, and showing that we are not we're not savages. We're not just looking to behead, murder.
They have to turn this into a spectacle. They have to. They've got to turn it. They have to make the whole world see what it is when a leader of a country or a dictator of a country who refuses to step down after he's lost a legitimate election. They have to show what's going to happen to them. And I think that one of the things that
If only we could do that with the heads of the Democrat Party here.
right, seriously. Well, you know what? That might be coming. That's why I named the title of the show "The Chickens Are Coming Home to Roost," because I really do believe that we will get things out of Maduro that we probably could not get
I
out
think
of
it's very much
anybody else.
the dominoes will start falling.
Yeah,
I would hope.
without a doubt. Without a doubt. As long as they don't put him up in that prison that Jeffrey Epstein was in.
Oh man, God, God help us. No, no.
I mean, seriously, they've got to put him in some better, place, right? And they better have, all the cameras working and people, on suicide watch, guarding that.
Yeah. No, I think the people who want him dead. I mean, he has too. It's too valuable, and clearly he's too high. I wouldn't think that's going to happen. And look, he has. I don't think anybody believed that he killed himself. I mean, the guy is, he's too much. I mean, at that level, these are the guys who have to be hanged or put to death. Like crusade. They're going to defiant to the very end.
Yeah, I do think though that I think there's room for a deal. Give the guy life in prison if we can get extract some good information.
Or just make his life comfortable, because he's gonna start experiencing deprivation. I understand that he was just a cab driver or sort of a driver under Chavez, and Chavez brought him up through the ranks. So it's not like he came from a wealthy, privileged background, as far as I know. So he knows what deprivation is, and I'm sure he will do anything to avoid, especially having lived as large as he has. And Chavez, I mean, man, he raped that country inside out. I mean,
I wonder how much his wife knows. I mean, she's being brought up on charges too, so
Well, she's another pressure point, because she probably knows a lot.
Right.
I mean, it's smart. I mean, you don't want to let that one get away.
Yeah.
Whatever he doesn't give her, what he doesn't give. I mean, she might, provide more than he does.
You never know. You never know. People talk to their spouses. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So,
and if she was involved as enough to be charged and brought in, she definitely knows where the bodies are buried.
Oh yeah. So I think that good things are to come, in the outcome of this. I think we're going to see even more things get exposed, and I hope that it's interesting. I was looking at Polymarket this morning, because it came up when I was typing in, when I was Googling, searching, right, about Maduro and all that. There was a Polymarket, a prediction. Yes, a prediction that. And it was interesting because it was only 20%. And then all of a sudden, then all of a sudden, like yesterday, it was like
skyrocketed.
Yeah, skyrocketed like last night, right? So
he knew something.
So, well, the funny thing is that it just goes to show they really kept things like tight on this. There were no leaks, and that was an important thing that Trump said.
Yeah, that was one point. Yeah,
why? Why did you not talk to Congress? But did you feel the need to talk to Congress? I think, first of all,
I have to say that shows for all the talk of, that they tried to do that signal chat, like that. Oh, it's such a loose operation. And, Haig said, no. They're very disciplined, because they know that nobody outside of the essentially Trump, insider top level people can be trusted. And I think and it's kind of weird. The media is sort of inaccessible because it's, they don't want to, they don't want to legitimize them. So they've cut off. They don't have the sources. There's no leaks. And that's a great thing.
Yeah.
It's a very powerful condition to have,
It's interesting. You pointed out something that was kind of interesting. We were talking about, when we were involved in like Gulf 4-1 and Gulf 4-2, and it was kind of like all about show, right? And about this almost like, Messiah
overwhelming, mass force kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. And it's interesting because one of the things that also was done, right, was the media was embedded into the military operations by, the Bush administration. That certainly wasn't done this time.
No.
I think Trump knows, first of all, he's the one who coined the phrase, the media are the enemy of the people. He understands what they are all about. And he's not playing.
And the thing is, they made it easy for him, because no matter what he does, they're always, and no matter even if they agreed with it 2 years before, they're going to blast him for it. So he can just write them off entirely, and certainly not give them an inch of trust whatsoever.
Yeah. Yeah. So what do you think if you're making a prediction, what do you predict are some of the things that might come out of this?
Well, I mean,
What would be
who knows? My
your
prediction. Well,
bet
my
on
prediction is going to
Cold
be that you're going to see a regime where you're not going to have, because of the way this was done, you're not going to have a successor. There wasn't like you have in any number of these dictatorships where they take down, the top guy, but then there's just a whole bunch of either military, people behind that just move into those positions and maintain the regime. I think we're actually going to see a sort of bloodless, I don't want to say coup, but the takedown of a regime where the people actually assert themselves and take the country back over, which would be a wonderful development. That's what I predict. I mean, that's what I feel could happen, and it would be a total lost opportunity if it doesn't.
No, I mean, honestly, I think they need to do, something very similar to what we did with Japan after World War II, right? We need to go in. I think Trump is doing the right thing and saying that, hey, we're going to be there for a little bit. We are going to run things for a while.
Yeah.
And I think that has to be done. We can't do like what we did.
Denazification, Marshall Plan, all that stuff that happened in post World War II. As long as they don't, again, these are productive and voluntary partnerships with these countries that, like, on the basis of it's good for everybody, not us dictating terms.
Yeah, the beautiful thing about all this, right? That it's like this is one of the differences, and I think this has a huge implication into why we go to war or why we would take action in a country like Venezuela versus why we might not, say somewhere else. Is this country has the infrastructure. They have we didn't blow up a bunch of their infrastructure.
No, that's what I said.
It was interesting. Trump did allude to something. He wouldn't say what it was, but he said, but he very, very coyly alluded to our ability to take out their power very quickly. And he didn't get into the details of
where it needed to be taken out, right?
Right. And I'm talking about like the lights were off for everybody.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. There's like technologically we had the advantage. We didn't wipe out, their critical infrastructure. Everything is in place to basically make this a fully functional operating country again. And more important than anything, they have the natural resources there to basically rebuild and to fund the rebuild, right? Unlike, unlike some other countries, right?
Yeah, this isn't frankly El Salvador, Nicaragua, or which were far less developed. Venezuela was like a first world level, certainly,
in South America
before pre-Chavez. Yes, they seem to have a string of dictatorships or oppressive, but again, they it's not like they were coming out of the dark ages or anything. In fact, I think more Chavez and Maduro put them into the dark ages in terms of the suffering of the people. So I think the Venezuelan people are amazing, and you see the profession. You've seen the videos, I'm sure, of people.
Oh yeah,
that are just ecstatic to see their country liberated. There's that
all over the world, because they've had what, a third of their, or 1/5 of their whole population has,
a quarter at least,
left,
fled, and these are some of the best and brightest people that just, talk about a brain drain. And I think that's another part that sort of feeds into, or is part of the divine, God's hand in this, where good people are now empowered. That's like, such that's going to be, I think, a profound ripple effect coming out of that. That has a spiritual aspect to it.
Yeah, and unlike Iraq, we're not dealing with rebel forces, right? That are fighting. We're not dealing with
it's culturally homogenous. There's not some sort of Sunni versus Shia, and we don't even understand the religion. This is basically a Catholic country, Christian, for the most part.
So it's very interesting. I think we will see some great success there. My hope is that this will lead to one of the things that has to happen, and I think this is so critically important. If we do not learn from this whole experience, if the people of Venezuela don't learn from this whole experience, that we must do everything we have to keep communists out of our countries. We cannot. I mean, like as much as
They're
the
always the wolves in sheep's clothing. They never are what they say they are.
right. I mean, for Europe and for the Near East, it's it's really keeping the Islamist Islamo-fascists out, right? But here it's the Marxists, it's the communists. Those are the revolutionaries. Those are the guys that you've got to keep out. You can't allow them in your universities. You cannot allow them in your country. Period. And I mean, honestly, we've made a huge mistake, I think, in how we have, because of our freedom of speech and because of our we've allowed a lot of things into our country, funded it. That's a big problem too. And I think that there are certain ideologies, right, that are just absolutely, they are completely
They're
in
anathema.
opposition. They are to our Constitution, and I think they have to be treated as such. They certainly shouldn't be getting any public funds at all to propagate that poison in our universities.
And unfortunately, there is an ideology that's malignant and metastatic.
Yeah.
Once it gets a toehold, it just continues to propagate because people have nothing else better to do. Because they're worthless in terms of being productive citizens. Let's face it, like I said, Bernie Sanders, they run around, they're political demagogues, and they're willing to do the only thing they're willing to do it could be considered on some level of productive is to become teachers and insinuate themselves into basically indoctrinating either that or activists. So
the funny thing about it is we're finding out and this is what has been exposed through the USAID, is a lot of the money that was going through these NGOs was being funneled back into organizations that were funding, these activist groups. Basically,
it was a total pipeline of. This is the amazing thing. The American people are being enslaved essentially, and they're getting to pay for it too. It's being charged to them. Like people talk about Soros's money. He was taking money from these these agencies. So that's the joke about it. I mean, and I always wonder, I was like, where do these people have? There aren't enough billionaires to fund all this. Well, they've been ripping us off, the taxpayers. That's it.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's got to end. I mean, that's really something that and that's going down hard. Meaning, like I'm sure they're clinging to whatever they can, and I just would hope that Doge continues, or at least
I think the cat's out of the box. I think I think there's no way or a cat's out of the bag. There's no way of putting it back in. You can't put that genie back in the bottle. This exposure of
but you'd be surprised with all that money how much they can wait out a regime.
They can,
an administration. But I'll say this: Russ Vogt, the director of OMB, he is a serious, true believer in terms of limited government and constitutional order, and I'm sure he's doing a lot of good. In fact, I can't reveal anything in this, but you might see something very interesting coming out of that involving another whistleblower, potentially out of the administration, which could be a seminal change in terms of the,
Well, I think that you've seen just what one 40-minute video can do for somebody who's willing to go knock on doors and expose, really all Nick Shirley did was he had the courage to go and knock on doors and give a voice to somebody who's been working on this stuff for 9 years. The guy that he brought with him who exposed all this stuff is the one that really did a lot of the work. But Nick Shirley had the ability to give this guy a voice and do it in a very, very
innocuous way, or not an offensive or partisan or ideological way.
Yeah, he's just
like, hey, here it is. Let them speak for themselves. And that guy who clearly had been, as he said, he had been threatened, he'd been assaulted, he'd been battered, he'd been, and I mean, that guy, whoever, I forget his name, but he deserves immense credit because it's people like that who are, as you were, frankly, with your, with the whistleblowing. I mean, it's that spirit that is going to be our salvation.
Well, and it's those things that I think embolden others to do, and that's what I'm seeing right now. It's like you're seeing other people that are going, and confronting their city council members, and they're confronting the people at their state, and they're asking them the questions that people should have been asking a long time ago.
Real courage is contagious, you know.
It is.
It catches and people are empowered and they feel empowered. It's only going to get more and more profound and potent.
And I think there's, I think we had talked on our last show on the radio program. We had talked a little bit about afterwards. I think we were talking about some of these whistleblowers and how many of them have been killed. There's a number of guys who have, I mean, I think of Philip Haney. There's no doubt in my mind he didn't commit suicide. He was murdered. Yeah. There's no doubt in my mind. They found him at a park and ride with a bullet wound to the chest. What did he hold the gun like this and shoot? I mean, come on.
Yeah,
and then not to mention the guy was a devout Christian, was getting married, and he was writing a book to expose something big. And he had reached out to a friend of his in Congress. I'm trying to remember his name. He's out of Louisiana, Congressman. Is it Louis Gohmert? Louis Gohmert. Yeah, he had reached out to him and told him. And he had that thumb drive around his neck at all times, and that was missing when they found his body.
Of course.
So
look at the attempts on you.
There were attempts on me. Thank God. Yeah. I think, the Lord's not done with me yet. But ultimately, I mean, this is not uncommon. You had that woman down who exposed the papers.
Virginia Giuffre.
Oh, yeah, her too. Yeah, she was the one that exposed the Epstein and the connection with the royal family and
with Prince Andrew.
Yep. And she said that she was not going to kill herself, that she was not suicidal, and then she ends up dead, supposedly due to suicide. There was a woman down in
this happens a lot, I think, around the human trafficking aspect, because they're so dirty and evil and diabolical that anybody exposing them.
That's the unforgivable sin, when you take the innocence of a child, right? And that is something that like you could probably murder somebody and get forgiveness for that, but you go and molest a bunch
when you're
of
exploiting
you're done.
Most vulnerable. That's why I think that's why they have people who go and threaten or expose us get killed, suicided.
Yeah. But the woman who exposed the Panama Papers, they killed her in a car bomb.
Yeah.
And then now you've got this you have this Democrat up in Wisconsin who was the only one to vote against this basically they were expanding
trying to give healthcare benefits. What was it? Just more of the illegal immigrant.
Yep, and she voted against it, and then she's found dead. I mean, I just these people.
Well, I saw something come out about there's some connection. Someone confessed essentially to Tim Walz being involved.
Yeah, it was the guy. It was the guy. The guy. So they caught the guy.
Yeah,
the guy who killed this woman worked for Tim Walz, and he confessed to the cops that he was
trying to portray him as a Trump supporter, right?
Yeah, no, he worked for Tim Walz and was told. He claims that Tim Walz had put him up to it to kill this woman.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
So I mean,
of course, the case went away real fast. You never heard another thing about it, right?
Yeah.
Well, he was talking about he was a Trump supporter. As soon as they find out the truth, that they can't pin it on some MAGA person or that it is ultimately some either operative or some mouth-breathing left-winger tranny. Suddenly, you never heard of the story.
I mean, I don't expect anything to happen in that state with their corrupt attorney general. But if there was any kind of federal involvement, if there was any kind of cross-state communications, anything that happened that could be considered RICO, I think they could bring a case, and I think that the current FBI, I think, could do it and would. It
was so brazen.
Yeah,
it was so brazen. I don't see how they couldn't. No, they definitely could. I mean, at minimum, bring a stop to it, for God's sake. I mean, come on.
Yeah,
they got people that are defending. Oh, the Trump administration, Medicare fraud, and blah blah blah. It's like no. And that's not a retort. Let's end it all. I mean, if that's the case, then it's fine. But the fact that they think that this can go on. Yeah, I love it. Did you see that one one of the healthcare place or daycare places had a break-in. Somebody came through the wall
Yeah.
of the next adjacent business, which was a Dollar Tree, I guess, and happened to steal all the records. Like which
Just,
would have
I'll
proven
tell
that.
you, you know it's brazen when they don't, when it's supposed to be a learning center and they don't even spell the word learning right. I mean, that
the
is
Leering Center.
learning center. I mean, it's like
That was probably more accurate though, even if
You're
it was horribly horrible. God, it's just, and this is the kind of thing that really sparks revolts. And here's the thing: it's like you talk about civil unrest. I think it'll come down to like people are like, I'm not paying for this anymore. And the
Yeah.
people who can, not everybody, unfortunately, withholding's a thing, but there's a lot of people who have to write and pay their taxes who are going to say, you know what? And I think it could very quickly,
Yeah.
with the ability of communication, if enough people sign on to it, we have the power.
See,
People have
here's
the
the thing
power.
that's a
Just don't
challenge.
exercise it or know it really.
Yeah, I look at like New York,
Collectively.
right? You take Mandami. I mean, this guy,
Yeah, take Mandami, please. to
he
power.
he is somebody who I think really has the potential to destroy New York City.
Oh yeah,
And the thing is that
more
he's
so.
not, without a doubt. And he was elected, and I have my questions about how that happened. But I'm sure there was some fraud in that. But
as a fellow recovering candidate, it's really disconcerting. You
Right.
work your ass off, you run, you got all the right stuff, and these people just waltz in. Like
Yeah.
the guy's been a citizen for what, 5 years now. He's mayor of New York City. It's like, man,
Yep.
system is really screwed. Something's not
Yeah.
right.
No, something's not right. And my, when I hear people talk about him, I have to be honest with you. My mind kind of goes immediately to, well, they're going to get what they voted for, right? Or if the people are going to get pissed off enough to where they're going to do something about it. Maybe this is the look. I as much as I think what Biden
Unfortunately,
did,
there are places that are accountability proof because of the way they've totally
well, here's the problem in New
co-opted
York.
the entire system. The entire political infrastructure is run by criminals. So
The one thing that does concern me is that there are some things that, just because of New York being what it is, right? Wall Street and all of that, the potential for what he does to have actually cause some harm outside of New York, I would say, is probably higher than, say, the mayor of LA, right? Or
Minneapolis.
or Minneapolis. Yeah, this is significant because New York is really, it is like the trade hub of center,
And it's very symbolic too, I think,
Yeah.
to an extent of American
But
financial.
isn't it interesting that we have all the major cities in the UK pretty much are run by Muslims. Now you've got the largest city in the United States run by a Muslim. So
Just
it's
unreal.
fascinating to me.
Yeah.
Well, where do we go from here? What do you think, as we kind of close this out, where do you think we go from here? What are your, I mentioned this before, what are your predictions of, where if you were to create a poly market bet, where would you place your bets?
Boy, there's so many contingencies. There's so many. It's hard for me to make a prediction, but I think that if this could be the harbinger of rolling back the Democrat reversal that they think they're going to have in 26.
Mhm.
I think if you get enough, first of all, momentum for a victory like this, which I think this is for Trump and his
Without a
administration, but then on top of it, the
this
fallout
could
from
impact
that,
the midterms, no
the
doubt.
exposure of corruption, and on top of this Minnesota thing kind of snowballing, I think the Democrats may think they're just going to anti-Trump their way back to power, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think there's going to be it's going to be surprisingly people saying, you know what, I don't like everything Trump's doing or not doing, but we're not giving it back to these criminals, because the Democrats haven't changed anything. If anything, they tripled down,
Yeah.
and they're exposed. I mean, it's like you're not going to sell this crap again, and you're not going to steal it again. So I think, especially with that census if we can get a ruling on, I think they've ordered them to stop counting them and redo the census in certain places, and they've won some victories. We'll see, because we've certainly have a lot of institutional resistance, and as I've often said, and Roger Stone,
Oh yeah.
has echoed, it's the rhinos are the biggest threat. Frankly, they're the worst subversives. Even, at least the Democrats, what they are, and see them coming. It's
You
Mitch
you
McConnell's been
reminded me of something I wanted to ask you about, especially with your background in law. What are your thoughts about these judges in Minnesota that basically just dismiss these cases?
Yeah,
where
this is the biggest, this is the deepest problem we have, is the corruption of the judicial branch, the judiciary at federal and state and local levels, and that's why you've seen an acceleration in the corruption. Because used to be, look, if you weren't able to be shamed out of, or sort of driven out of politics by the exposure of your corruption, the system, the judicial system, the law enforcement system would get you.
Right, that was like your
They-
final stop, right?
Yeah, I know. They've compromised all of it. Let's face it. We had the law enforcement arm turned into an enforcement mechanism for railroading essentially innocent people, and unfortunately, just as we saw with I think the election cases revealed much of this, that we can't count on the judges anymore.
Well, it
They
doesn't
have
help when they-
insinuated enough operatives here in Colorado. Or, well, I live in Delaware right now, but in Colorado, there's a judge who tried and oversaw the wrongful and horrible conviction of Tina Peters.
Yes.
And her, giving her 9 years and denouncing her. This person is, in my view, part of a criminal conspiracy, sitting on the bench, no matter how milquetoast they come across, or mild mannered they seem.
Well, when I look at the hubris that many of these judges have is just unbelievable. It's not like anything I've ever seen, because they know they feel like they're
psychopaths. They're psychopaths.
And one of the things that I was looking into was when, under the law, at least the federal judges, there is impeachment, is a possibility. And so I was curious, when was the last time that like any major impeachments were done on judges? It was done under Ronald Reagan. He impeached several federal judges that were involved in bribery and kickback.
I know there was one named Nixon, unfortunately, was impeached. I think he was removed. Yeah, it's been a long time, and I think we've seen some, particularly with Boasberg. There's been impeachment articles drawn up and presented. The problem is, again, it comes back to, you need the 2/3 majority in the Senate, and it's a very. But I think that you at least putting them in the record and bringing these people on some level to account, but at least putting them to trial, is a worthwhile process. Because what else is Congress doing? What else?
Right.
What else does Johnson have going on in the House, or
Seriously.
what are they doing in the Senate except blowing more money and evading accountability for all the largesse and just incredible profligacy that goes on there?
Yeah.
It's like, I believe me, the country's safe when Congress is out of session. So it should be oversight and impeachments, frankly, of these lawless, corrupt, wayward judges that have gone so far beyond. Here's an example. What happened to they should just eliminate the DC Circuit Court. These are creations of Congress. They can eliminate that overnight. That is a cauldron of subversion of our Constitution.
Without a doubt.
The fact that the District of Columbia is so ridiculously lopsided Democrat tells you all you need to know about that entire circuit court. And I don't know why that's not on the table. I think
I've always felt
we have this tin-eared rhinos in there that really don't know.
I feel like Washington D.C. needs to be redistricted and basically redrawn so that there is nobody living. Like there are no housing in the district.
Well, you could have the federal enclave just be the building, the office building.
Because
the rest of it's just part of Maryland and Virginia.
Part of Maryland and Virginia. And it's like ridiculous, because basically the people who live there don't have representation anyway.
Yeah, and I know they're trying to get 2 senators and a rep. It's like, no chance in hell. Screw that.
That's an interesting point. I've seen a lot of people talking about, like, there's been big pushes to split California, right? Into 2 or 3 states.
Yeah.
But I saw
separatist movements.
I saw through that, and I'm like, oh hell no, because that would give them more senators. No. And when you look at how they drew the lines, so that it would basically, it doesn't create any conservative, like, if they took Orange County and San Diego County and turned that into, a state, and then, took the central and then took the northern, maybe, right? But no, that's not what they're doing.
It couldn't make it worse for Republicans anyway, because the Democrats have, I think, through fraudulent elections, have essentially just completely taken over that entire state.
Absolutely.
And that's why, and the fact that we get the most radical, lunatic politicians, Pelosi, Schiff,
Yep,
Swalwell,
Swalwell, all of them.
It's a fact that they know
the most corrupt.
They know they're going to win. They know they've got the system, essentially bamboozled or rigged, so they can put out these whack jobs who are handpicked, zealots that become the bane of everybody's existence. I mean, God, some of the worst people in Congress come out of California,
without a doubt. Yeah,
and I would like to see that state return. I mean, it used to be. There was accountability. The voters would rise up, but I think they're stealing.
I think it's too. I don't think it will ever happen as long as illegal aliens are able to vote, or even if it's not even a matter of them voting, because I don't think they vote. I think they register to vote, and then they use their names with mail-in ballots. And as long as that's going on,
no, that's exactly what they do. The people think illegals are voting. No, they're not. They're just representing numbers that are free ballots for Democrat criminals to fill out and in their favor. And I'm sure they're using electronic means and every aspect until we get back to the election reform. And this is what needs to happen again. Same day, one day, election day, paper ballots.
Yep.
Absolute positive identification, ironclad proof of eligibility, purging the rolls, cleaning up the system. Until that happens, I don't trust any, but I think we've been ruled by an illegitimate junta rather than an elected government.
Yep, absolutely. Do you think that with Iran and what's happening there with these mass protests and everything, do you think? I mean, to me, this is kind of iffy, right? I'm hoping that they have, they've got what it takes to overthrow the Islamic Republic and get back their country, because Iran's a unique situation. I've interviewed a lot of people from Iran who, are basically they all say the same thing, that basically the people of Iran, they are essentially slaves.
Yeah.
They do not want.
And it's so sad because they're such an amazing people, very cultured people, even through the Islamic oppression, really a beautiful people who could be free and deserve to be free and deserve to flourish, and not be under the boot of this, this fascist, or whatever you want to call it, totalitarian, medieval religious element. These clerics are just, I mean, they're awful. They've killed, they're evil. I mean, they're the Antichrist,
they really are. And they are essentially, they are the thorn, really, in the Middle East that drives a lot of the problems with everybody.
And their numbers, I mean, their zealotry is so extreme that it's, what it takes to repel them.
Yeah.
Civilized people don't want to go to those lanes, but unfortunately they're going to live as slaves until they, finally put them back in their place, back in a cave, find an enclave for them. Look, you can have this shithole country, and that's it. As far as the rest of it, you're not going to be, subjugating women and living by the Sharia law. And they're trying to bring Sharia law here. I mean, you see it up in my mind. God, like, you're out of your fucking mind. Excuse me, you're out of your minds.
You don't have to apologize here, but I feel the same way. In fact, with
no chance in hell.
How in the world liberals can look themselves in the mirror and expect, that
they'd be the first one slaughtered. That's what's ridiculous about them. And you have to think these people are totally deranged. They are. They're mentally unstable. It's serious, like mental illness level stuff. Like suicidal.
Yep, absolutely. Well, I always like to ask my guests, what would be. We've talked about a whole lot of range of things tonight, but what would be the most important thing you want people to take away from our conversation tonight?
That democracy, or having a constitutional republic, is not a spectator sport. Get involved. You need to get out there, whatever, in any way you can, towards the cleaning up the system. Whether it
Yeah.
be being involved in finding out what your local elections are about, like what the integrity levels are there. But it all comes down to the elections. If we don't have elections, we're just, what are we? We're not a
Yeah.
country. We're not a people. We're slaves. We're subjects, and that's exactly what we threw off.
Yep.
So I mean, the cause of election reform is the most critical. There's no other. There's nothing more. I mean, like again, there's nothing more important than that. I mean, for all the corruption, exposing it, who cares if we don't choose? It's just going to be the same cast of revolving set of criminals.
Yeah.
So please find out, inform yourself, start talking to people who may not necessarily, people who might have thought, oh, well, there was no fraud in 2020. That's what the media said. There's enough out there now. There's excellent materials to show these people. Yeah, there was. And it
Court
was
cases being one.
so vast that, the media was involved in covering it up and suppressing it and
Without
denouncing and demonizing people. I think of like Sidney Powell and like
Rudy Giuliani,
Eastman
Barr,
yeah,
Eastman.
Giuliani and these others.
Yep.
Horrible. I mean, these people's lives were destroyed. I mean, it's awful. And you never hear these people who denounced you and talk, no, there's no election fraud, and you're a denialist, you're an election denier. They've never been held to account. They've never basically said, yeah, guess what, there was. So until these people are convincingly or conclusively repelled and hoisted on their own petard, if they're not willing to say, yeah, for at least the ones who may have just inadvertently gone along, although I think there's very few. I think it was very intentional. Until that happens, there is no justice, and we certainly, how can we expect to have clean elections when they won't even admit the fraud in the biggest one of all?
I think what bothers me most about those people who would support that type of behavior is that they've lost any sense of morality. Like,
Yeah.
it used to be.
No, it's ruthless. It's mercenary is the only word
Yeah,
for it.
it's no matter whatever means is necessary is kind of their mentality.
And it's not even, and again, it's not even for an ideology. It's just pure raw power.
the desire for
And
power.
that's going to be their undoing, because I mean, I'd rather be up against just a raw criminal who's just get grabbed, greedy and self-serving, than someone who actually has an ethos or an agenda or an ideology, or philosophy to go from, because then you're dealing with like real zealots who will go down with the ship. I think, you can break down criminals and deal with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dismantle their networks.
Yep. Well, Tyler, will you pray with me? I'd like to just pray over this, what's going on in the world right now. I think that it's amazing what is happening, and I give a lot of credit to our military and to Trump and his team. I'll tell you, I am more and more impressed each day with Marco Rubio as our Secretary of State. He's really surprised me, and I'm just elated.
He's played his cards very right. I'll say that for sure.
Yeah.
He's not little Marco anymore.
No, not at all. he's somebody to contend with now, and I think God has blessed our country. I think He's given us a reprieve from the corruption that we have seen over the last 4 years. I'm hoping that the last 4 years were basically a wake up call to America, and that we don't fall back into that. And I'm hoping the same.
I can pray for that all day, every day. That's my meditation. Is that God help us, please. Don't go back to what.
I pray the same for Venezuela, because they have a real chance now, and it's really important that obviously that they root out anybody who's of that ideology out of the government completely, and so that they can get back to living life and having opportunities, and and being able to achieve their dreams. So, well, Heavenly Father, Lord, I thank you so much, Lord, for this opportunity to share with all of our guests on tonight, and for all the people who are watching the show. And I thank you, Lord, for Tyler and the good work that he's doing. And thank you for this opportunity just to be able to go back and forth with him on some of these things that are happening in the world. Lord, we pray for your blessing over our nation. We pray for your blessing on our leaders that are trying to do the right thing. We pray that you would guide and direct them. And for those that are corrupt, We pray, God, that you would remove them and that you would completely purge them from our government, from our federal, state, and local government. Lord, we pray for those that are still incarcerated falsely, like Tina Peters. Lord, we pray that you would encourage her and that you would set her free. We pray, Lord, for the people of Venezuela and for the people of Iran and other parts of the world, Lord, that are just undergoing just complete suffering, Lord. We pray for Christians in Nigeria that have been marginalized and been murdered and attacked by the Islamic terrorist groups in the surrounding area. And Lord, we lift up, all of those, Lord, in the world that are dealing with just hopeless situations. We thank you for the hope that there is right now that things will begin to turn around in Venezuela. We pray that you will quickly bring to a resolution the complete removal of the corrupt in that government, and that you will bring about a new hope and a new future for Venezuela. And we pray the same for Iran and for other parts of the world as well. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. And God bless you, Nate,
God
for
bless
your
you
work
too.
and your
Thank you.
courage.
Thank you.
Good.
Tyler, where can people follow you, and where can they catch your stuff that you're writing?
Pretty much at Real Tyler Nixon on X, or Tyler Nixon ESQ on Truth Social, although I'm very rarely on Truth Social. I got to kind of step it up a little bit. But Real Tyler Nixon on X, that's where you can find me.
All right. Well, hey, thanks a lot for coming on the show. And folks, thank you for watching the show and participating.
Great comments, everybody.
Absolutely.
We've been reading them. Yeah, really good stuff.
Thank you, guys. And remember, stay engaged, like Tyler was saying. If we don't be active participants in what we are living in, then it's basically going to control us. We're not going to have any say in it. We have to be engaged. The only way that our form of government works is if we're engaged and we're actively holding those accountable that serve us.
Freedom is not free.
That's right. That's right. Well, God bless you guys and have a wonderful night. And hopefully we will hear even greater things coming out of this. Look, what a great way to start the year, huh? So,
yes, amen.
All right, guys, have a good night.
Cheers.
Raise some cane. You gotta raise some cane. In the heartland where the faith runs strong, we've seen the shadows growing long. Watch those around us be deceived. Yeah, the fight is at our doors, no matter who we believe. Corruption, lawless day and night, we'll speak the truth into the light. We'll bring the battle, heed the call, watch the whole thing fall. We gotta raise some cane, show the lies, break some chains and make things right. Feel the power, be the change, the time is now. We gotta raise some cane.